Hello, friends. If you haven't been here before, my name is Tina from Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. Today, we're here with my beautiful co-host, Karen. Hey, everybody. And our guest, Bonnie Jennings. Welcome, Bonnie.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Bonnie is a nurse by profession and an artist and writer by hobbies. She's an animal lover, a mother, and a longtime ufologist. She's also the writer of her book, My Near-Death Experience.
Yeah. Yes, thank
To Orion's Belt, escorted by extraterrestrials. So, Bonnie, I just fell in love with your story and I wanted to have you on because, first of all, there's so many similarities between us. But do you want to start by telling people a little bit about your childhood experiences with your father and what was happening there?
you. Okay. And again, thank you for having me. I so much appreciate being on here. And I'm going to start with a little bit of my father and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So I was born in 1952 and my father was a mechanical engineer for Thiokol, well, later for Thiokol, but he was in the Air Force. And I was born in New Orleans. And by the time I was in two, we were in California. And by the time I was five, I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And by the time I was six, I was in Texas.
Wow.
So he was transferred quite a bit with the government. And his role there began in the shipyards, making bridges, and then he began to make missiles and rockets. And it was about the time that the Vietnamese War started that I believe we were in Texas. I was 6 or 7. He had built the home that we lived in. And I had 3 sisters, and all of us had our own rooms. And so during the night, I started awakening to bad dreams. Only I was told they were bad dreams, but I was awake and I saw. And what I saw were very, very, very tall beings that they were cloaked in robes of black. And I was too frightened to look at their faces, and I became petrified and could not move in my bed. So they gave me sleep paralysis, only I was awake. I do remember one of them coming over me and threatening me with his hand, "You say anything," and blah, 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 blah. And I was petrified as a child. I was 6 or 7 years old. And so I got to know how and when they were coming. And so before they got there, I would crawl on the floor to my sister's doorway and I would sleep in her doorway. And they would pass by me. But in my bedroom, I seemed to have the portal that they entered in on. And it was my father began to create ammunition. And in the United States, he made or created the smart bomb. So that smart bomb killed who knows how many people. And I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying that those beings evidently were dropping the information into his head at night, and I was in their way. Okay. So I never forgot that. And in fact, the day my mother died in 2011, my sister and my daughter and I, my daughter was in her 30s and my sister and I are much older. I started talking about that incident, and my daughter said, "I saw them too." And my daughter was 30 or almost 40, well, 30-ish. And I said, "Don't say anything. Let's draw pictures of them." And so I'll be doggone, we drew exactly the same thing. Only she looked in their faces and she saw what they looked like. She said they were masked. And she said they threatened her. She and my son were sleeping in my room, and she said they threatened her about her brother, that if she opened her mouth, they would do something to him. And so these beings were still in the house 30, 40 years later, you know. So that was my first experience with, I didn't know they were extraterrestrials. However, a few years later, oh, when I say a few years, I mean 2 or 3 years later, my father was at the plant, and I believe it was midnight. And he had a rocket that he was going to blast. And he was there with a photographer, and they were surrounded by lights coming from the sky, and the lights surrounded them outside on the launch pad, and they took pictures of them. Well, my father, within less than 24 hours, was flown to Washington, D.C., and he was debriefed with the photographer, and they took the camera from the photographer, and they were never allowed to have those pictures. They were told at that point, don't you ever speak about this ever again. This is nobody's information but the government's, and you put it out of your mind. And so at that point in time, I believe I was in the 4th grade at this point. At that point in time, they sent him home, and it was summertime. And so my parents sent me to summer camp for the entire summer, every single session. And so at that particular time, according to his best friend, is when Project Blue Book came into our house and investigated my parents. And in fact, I do recall meeting who I think they were. And they came in as a couple with some really wild kids, okay? And the kids were climbing on the drapes and just out of control, you know? And I can remember my mother was like freaking out over these kids. And so that's when I was shipped off to camp. And so my father was told, don't you ever speak about this ever again. And so the only person that he ever vented to was his best friend and me. And so he vented to me as a child because he thought I'd never listen. I was out in the garage with him when he was working on one of his hobbies. And every weekend, that's what he did. And I'd spend hours out in the garage, and he'd start talking about Project Blue Book and blah, 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 you know, and he'd badmouth them and he'd say terrible things. And he bought me a telescope for Christmas. And I remember asking him, Daddy, are there beings out there? Are there other? He says, well, I remember his words. He said, if we believed there weren't, then we would be pretty ignorant. We would be selfish and ignorant. Now, I'm like 9 years old at this time. And so I've held that in my heart for years, because that was his way of telling me, yes, there are. And so I went to school in the 4th grade. I believe it was 3rd or 4th grade. I think it was 4th grade. And I had written a paper, a report on Project Blue Book. And the teacher was a friend of my parents. And so I got up in class and I gave a report on Project Blue Book. Of course, back in those days, the public had never heard about Project Blue Book, but I had. And so my teacher says, where did you get that information? I said, well, from my father. I assumed all kids had this information. You know, I'm just, right. You know, I just thought everybody did. And so I guess, I don't know what happened, but we shortly thereafter moved, and we moved out of state, and my parents did come back to that house. And when they came back is when my daughter had her visit with them. So that is basically the story of my childhood in a nutshell. And so that kind of opened my curiosity all my life of flying saucers, of beings that I knew are there. I have never questioned it. I have always known, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we are not alone. And so around 2014, I would go out in the sky and I'd just look at a cloud and I'd grab my cell phone, I'd take a picture of it, and I'd go inside and enhance it. And I'll be doggone, there's a saucer in my yard. And my son, who is a non-believer, he's in his 30s at the time, he says, it's a afternoon, I think it's July the 3rd. He says, Mom, come outside. You got to see this. There's a star outside. It's daylight. And I'm okay. So I grab my cell phone. I'll go outside. Sure enough, going overhead, way up there is a huge light. It's not a star. It's moving very slowly. And I start taking pictures of it. Well, I sent you the picture of it yesterday.
Oh, I have it. Do you want me to share? I'll share it.
Yeah, go ahead and show it. It's triangular and it looks close, but I have blown it up tremendously. And
Do you see that?
Yeah. Yep, I see it.
Yeah, it's huge.
So it's very, that you can see my trees are kind of blurry. So that thing is floating. It's not moving, it is floating. And it was up there about 45 minutes. Honestly, I got tired of looking at it. I think I left. But
did you feel any connection to it or any energy coming from it? What was the feeling?
I did feel it because I sensed it was basically overhead for a reason, but there was no lost time. And I have had one period of lost time. So there was no lost time. So I did feel like it was presenting itself for some unusual
watching you,
maybe, or saying hello. It's just one of probably 5, 6, 7 that I've got in the sky. So anyway. And so I think that was between 2014 and 2016. I want to say that was 2016. And so anyway, just to let you know, I've always had a huge interest in it. Also have to let you know that from, I don't know, 1970 to 1998, I had been a Christian, okay, traditional and charismatic. I left the church in 1998 for some of these reasons, and I became a Gnostic Christian, and so that allows you to expand on Christianity when you see flying saucers, and it kind of opens the door. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Things start to make sense more, And so I'm progressing to my my period of my NDE. Is that where you want me to go?
Yeah.
At this point? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So I've been a nurse for quite a few years, and I had gotten the job. And I have to tell you, I'm 70 now. So when I had my NDE, I was 66. So when I was 66, I had finally gotten the job that I thought, okay, I'm going to nestle in here. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to sit here till I retire. This is wonderful, and blah, 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 And so it was in November. And so they came to say, tomorrow you get flu shots. Well, I've always been allergic to flu shots. I stopped getting them in 2014. And so their resolution to me was, well, either you wear a mask. Well, I'm an asthmatic. You hear me. I have a hard time breathing. And so I said, I can't wear a mask 8 hours a day. And they said, well, then you'll have to resign. Either get the shot or resign. So I said, okay, I'll get the shot. So I got the shot. Within 1 week, my eyes dilated just like they did 2 weeks ago. Okay, both eyes. And that is, let me tell you, that is a symptom of a side effect of getting a flu shot that you're allergic to.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here telling anybody not to get anti-vaxxed. I'm not here to do that. This is not about anti-vaxxing. This is me, before COVID ever hit here, had a reaction to the flu shot, and that was the beginning result. Within 2 months, my body became huge and I couldn't breathe. And I had to quit that job and I had to start working nights because my eyes were dilated. And I started watching children on ventilators. And so I came home early in the morning. I worked 12-hour shifts. So I came home early in the morning and I was sick as a dog. And my body had just swollen so much that within 18 hours, 16 to 18 hours, my body just could not, I couldn't breathe. Okay. I was struggling to breathe. It was agonizing. I was gasping for air. My mind was getting very confused. I couldn't get myself in a car to drive me anywhere. I couldn't go to the emergency room. I couldn't even think emergency room. I'm a nurse and I can't think emergency. I couldn't even say you're confused, okay? Because I was past that point. So I remember standing up by my bed about 11:30 at night or 10:30, somewhere there. And the newsman said, "This is the coldest night of the year. There's ice on the ground." I'm in East Texas now. And nobody drives on ice here. And I said to myself, "Oh, wow, you picked a fine night to die."
Wow.
And before I ended that statement, I hit the ground and I never remember anything else. I was gone. And I have to bring up here, my friend David Monroe is an astrologer, and he did my astrological chart because I was confused on, was it the 8th or the 9th of February that I died? And he verified that it was 100% on the 8th. And that's
Right,
what
because I wanted to ask you about that, because in your book you said your son found you the next day, right? Or you talked to
They
him
said
on
it
the
was the
phone.
ninth.
yes,
Your
that
kids, they talked to you.
sounded very strange. Either I was speaking to them in spirit. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no
that's-
idea.
So what did they say? That they got a phone call from you, or what did
Or
they
No,
say?
no, my son was in the house. He was walking by and I said, "You've got to call 911 now. I can't breathe." And he called 911. I said, "Tell him to get here immediately." And I was gone. And
Oh, wow.
I do remember the ice on the roads. And I can't, no, at that point, there is no more thinking. Okay. I no more thought about ice on the road. that, the whole earth stops. Everything that you worry about, everything that you think about, it stops. And so that's a very strange question that I have not answered, but I have not found answers, and I would love to know, because the hospital record says the 9th too. And so it says, I think it says 10:30 in the morning or 10:35 on the 9th. And yet
you remember it being the night before.
Yep, the 8th, about 11:30 at night. And then David comes up with, it was the 8th. So something weird about that, but I don't know. So anyway, I'm in ICU and I'm intubated, and that's why I'm raspy now too. So I was intubated, and my throat has never cleared. And they have tubes. They've got a peg tube in me, Foley catheter, all that business. And I'm in ICU, I think 3 or 4 days. I can't remember. And my sister's there, and my 2 children are by my side when I wake up. And I start telling my sister, and I'm intubated, she can't hear you. But anyway, I will now go back to my NDE. I've got the stage set for it. So all right, so I'm now in the death state. And just remember that on that wall on the other side, there is no time. So I mentally have lined up this event happened first, second, third, fourth. I don't know if it happened that way. It might have happened all at once, or there may have been a time. I don't know. I want to say this too, so that people know that when we say that there is no time, over there, you're like in a bubble. And that bubble might be your consciousness, okay? And in that bubble, if you die today, you may come alive in that bubble and you might bounce back 50 years or 500 years or go ahead of yourself because there is no timeline. So you can get ahead of yourself. Do you understand what I mean? You're
Mhm.
You could
not
do anything.
okay. So I have arranged it in an order. So I wake up in a place that I call a petri dish. Of course, being a nurse, that's a lab, or where I see myself in a pod. Okay.
Mhm.
In my book, I painted the pod. We talked about this.
Yeah, can I show that picture while you're
Yeah,
talking about it?
certainly. I painted the pod after my NDE because I had to bring myself some clarity. Because in my experience, those little round sections, each of us fit inside of it, but they're all divided. And inside those sections, we have our universes. We have who we are, what we think, what we like, what we dislike. We have everything going on. We're creating inside those pods. That is us. That is our life. That's everything about us. So, like I said, I painted it after the fact, and I've given that a lot of thought, but I'm not for sure why. I gave myself the reason I painted it is to make myself feel better. I'm not sure. So anyway, I wake up, I call out, hey, I need help. Somebody help me. Please help me. And somebody or something came over to me and set me out of the podcast. And suddenly I am, I'm by a mountain, a huge mountain, and it's erupting and it has blood coming out of it. There's blood pouring down the side of the mountain. And I look to my side and there's an Asian man that's very tall and lean. He has on like a loincloth and a robe, and he has a big hat on, and he's stirring the blood. And I said, am I in hell? He says, well, do you think you're in hell? And I said, no. He says, you're at the cleansing pond or cleansing pool. And I said, well, what is that? He says, I'm cleansing bad thoughts. I'm cleaning the brain. And so I said, okay. He says, every time you go up a level, you're going to come back here to be cleansed because you can't travel with weight on you. Mm-hmm. You have to travel lightly. The higher you go, the lighter you got to be. So I said, okay, all right. So as soon as I got it, whoop, I'm off. And suddenly I'm standing in the desert and I'm all by myself. And my hair is kind of long like it is now, and it's kind of blowing, but there's no warmth and there's no coolness. There is no temperature, but it's dry. And in the distance, I see this huge rock, and it starts rolling towards me, and it's very matted surface. And when it comes, it rests at my feet, and this boulder is probably about 18 feet tall, and it's thick, very, very thick, and it's solid matte. And I've never seen any kind of mineral or stone that looks like that. And there's no writing on it. And I'm just looking at it. And all of a sudden, if it were a clock, between 5 and 6 opens up like a pie shape. And I thought, oh, that is so unusual. So before I went in, I'm thinking, am I at the end of my life, or where does this represent my life now, or is this all my lives? So I recognized right then and there I had more than one life, or is this all my lives? So inside that little slice of pie, I drew a picture of it. It's all green and beautiful, and there's a little dog there, but in my reality, there is no dog. Okay, there's nothing. Okay, I drew a dog to make me feel comfortable, but yes, that's it. That little pie right there. You can see the stars and everything. So I walked through that little slice, and there is the being, my guide, who's on the back of the book, who meets me, and I called him a him. My daughter thinks it's my mother, but the eyes were crystal like that, just like you were looking through crystals. Okay, and that being saw everything. Now, mind you, these beings never correct you. They'll answer your questions, but very, I don't want to use the word vaguely, but they want you to try to answer it. They don't want us dependent on them. Okay, they want us to do it. They don't want any laziness. Okay, so they want, so if you ask a question, they want you to do your best to answer it. And that was a big deal over there too. I have to say that. We depend on being saved, and it's they want us to do it.
Save ourselves.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, we're there, and the being greets me, and I greet him or her. I call him him, and we know each other. We're happy to see each other. And he reaches down on the ground, he puts up some sand, and he's letting the sand go through his hand. And I'm looking at the sparkles, and I reach out and get the sand too. And I'm just looking at the universe, the dirt, and how beautiful it. You can see the universe in his hands. And so I can see how absolutely glorious beneath our feet what we stand on, the mega universes that are beneath us that we are so unaware. I could see the bacteria and the minerals and the viruses and everything that's down there, everything that's trying to have a life besides us. And so then we're off, and we're going. He said, "Come on," and so I'm flying by the speed of thought. Okay, and so I guess he thought, because we ended up with the Sumerian tablets, I was exhilarated. I was like at home. This was my home. And I went and I put my hands on the tablets, and they looked new, and I rubbed them, and I could feel like Braille what they meant and how they felt. Yes. And absolutely. And I knew exactly what they meant. And it was so thrilling. And I knew then I had been there. I had been there at that time. And so the being says, "Come on, we got to go. We got more." We weren't in a hurry, but the being was so excited to show me the things that I loved that we went to all the relics on Earth. We went to the pyramids. We went to see Sphinx. We went to to Peru, to Machu Picchu. We went up through Mexico. We went to all the pyramids, and I was just in heaven. I mean, if that could be heaven, that was heaven to me. It was just so magnificently splendid. And so from that point, after we touched everything and felt everything and, everything there was, he said to me, "Okay, it's time. Are you ready?" And I said, ready for what? He said, follow me. And so off we went by the speed of thought. We flew to Orion's belt. And at Orion's belt, we entered into a spacecraft. And it was huge. It was gigantic. And we entered into a part of it. And we went into a room. And in that room, I was showed a chair by him. And although there wasn't a chair, it was through imagination, okay? And there was a table that had a light coming up from underneath it. It had no physical form. The walls there had no physical in them. And I think I sat down, then I stood up as those 5 individuals came walking into the room. And you can show that picture there. Yeah, they came in. And I didn't draw. I mean, I did this 3 months after I had a head injury, after not having any oxygen. Okay, so so they're not really great, but they were my idea. But they came in and they sat down. Now, mind you, there is no eye contact between me and them, and it's not because of me. It's because they are looking straight forward. The one that's closest to me is about 4 feet tall, and he is a male with, I saw a mustache.
Is that this little one over here?
Yes, that one. That one. He's sitting next to me, and he's the friendly one. He's giving me directions to have a seat, and so okay. Now this is where I think my life review was, but because it was possibly negative, and I don't like negative things, I erased it in my mind, or maybe they erased it. So I don't know. But so I can't tell you, yeah, they said that, yeah, they said that. That was out of my mind. But I can tell you that the being on the end was very, very tall. What I would consider a white alien is what I've heard as being a white alien, had no eyesight, eye contact whatsoever. By the way, we don't see with our eyes because we don't have eyes there, but through our telepathy, she looked straight forward, and she was white. She held books in her hands, and then the being next to her, which I can't remember. And then the center being, I remember being kind of blue. I kind of remember a beak and eyes, like bird eyes that were just very, and I think I felt a little intimidated by them a little bit. And then the being next to the bird person, I don't remember. And then the little grayish guy. And that was the one giving me the directions. Please have a seat. Don't worry. Feel comfortable. He was just being polite. And he said, there's nothing to worry about yet. When I saw what was ever they showed me, and I do that. When I don't like something, I'll cut it out. So I don't know if it was me or them, and I would love to be hypnotized so I could find out what was in that. And so anyway, so from there, I was taken to another part of that spacecraft. And in that spacecraft, they were very friendly at that point in time. Before, they weren't real friendly, I would say. They were very professional. And except for the little guy and the being with me, they were tender and warm. But the others were very straightforward.
Was your guide there with you at that point? Was your
Yes,
guide?
my guide stood behind. My guide stood behind me. My guide didn't say anything. And so my guide went with me, or took me into this other room where these other beings were. And they were just having they were very friendly. And they had star charts in their computers. Let's back up. At some point, the beings in the room handed me a tablet and they said, read these. And I looked at them. I said, what? I said, that's binary code. I can't read binary code. And they said, yes, you can. Look at it. I started looking at it. And evidently, I started reading it to them and telling them what it was. Well, what I found out about the binary codes is it is a location and a time and a place and where and what life they can find somebody when they need to in the universe. It's a whole address book of every being that's, yes, that's when we move into with the other men. And so that book was taken with me into that room with those men and the star charts that were having a good time. They took that binary code because they handed it to me in pages. And I remember, they were old computer pages like from the 90s. Okay. I remember that. And they took those pages and threw them on the ground and burned them on the bottom of the starship. And I remembered thinking, why did you do that? And they thought it was very funny. And I didn't think it was, I didn't find the humor in it. Anyway, so they take me in to see these star charts, and I'm looking at them and I think, wow, those are phenomenal. And I said, well, here's Orion's belt, and here's Pleiades, and here's, the Big Dipper, and here's the constellations. And I forgot to tell you that my father was a navigator in World War II. So he had given me a lot of information about the constellations. So they were asking me questions, and that information that I had gotten from him, I was pointing out to them, well, this is this, and and so they said, okay, so you are good to go. You have passed the test. Okay. So at that point in time, they moved me to the back of the ship and they opened the back door and they said, you're free to go. I said,
Where?
okay.
Go where?
All right, where do I go? And so I took off and I just was flying through the universe. I was seeing all these stars and it was absolutely fabulous. It was just breathtaking. And I plotted myself on this planet and I sat down and I watched the Elohim, which is plural for gods, a Hebrew word, plural for gods, create. That's what they do. They create a universe, a nebulous. They were out with their little magical wands that are kind of like a witch's wand with lights all over, sparkles go, dash, boom. And they're just creating the universe just like a beautiful, beautiful picture. And they're laughing and they're having so much fun doing it. And it was at that point in time that I realized that that Elohim, that God being, does not hate anybody. That Elohim does not make anything that is not perfect in its eyes. Now, we might judge things and say, oh, that's this or that, and we don't like that. The Elohim doesn't do that. Isn't that beautiful? And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's really gorgeous. It's just, I mean, there was no, the dark and the light. That's everything is just, beautiful. Well, traveling with me, although not saying anything, sitting on another planet, was a male being, a very young male being. And he was not my guide at this point. It was another guide. And we just nodded to each other. And he was like, you enjoying this? I'm going, yeah, this is really great. And, just beautiful. And at the same time, as we're up there in the very, very distance in ICU, I could hear my sister in the ICU telling me, you've got to come back. We call my mother. Mother, who's deceased, says, it's not your time. You need to come back now. Come back. And I'm like, I don't want to come back. This is nice. She's going, well, who's going to take care of your animals? I have a lot of animals. You've got to come back and take care of these animals. And I said, but I don't want to. And so she keeps calling me, and my children are calling me too, but I'm ignoring them. Okay. And I'm like, wow, my dogs and my animals are really missing me. And so the young guy says to me, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Oh, I guess so." And so, and I have to tell you, when I got there, one of the first things I said to them, I didn't say this, is I complained to them, why didn't I have lights, a tunnel, angels? Why didn't I have what other people had? Why am I just here? And so, anyway, at that point, the guide with me says, "Are you ready?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I'm ready." He says, "Okay." And I started sliding back through the universe, like on a water slide almost, and through a purple tunnel with beautiful lights coming at me. And I slid into my body, and I'm back in that ICU room I'm intubated. I'm trying to talk to my sister and tell her all these things that I need to tell her. And so finally the doctor says, "I think we're ready to take that out of your mouth." I said, "Yes, please do." Of course, I'm raspy now, but can you imagine how raspy I was 3.5 years ago? So nobody can understand me. So anyway, I remember her telling me, I wrote this stuff down. I remember she and I discussing this, how she was calling me, and I remember me responding to her. And so on one of my recent podcasts, they asked me, "Well, did you talk to her about this?" I said, "Yes." And so recently, like last week, I asked her, I said, "Did we ever talk about that?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, did you ever?" She said, "Yes." Those were her exact words. She said, "You've got to come home now. Our mother said it's not your time yet. And we have no one to take care of your animals. You've got to come back." And those were her exact words. So I was picking up her thoughts through telepathy. You got to come back. You got to come back. Well, anyway, from that hospital, I went in, I was there almost 3 weeks. So I went into rehab on the last week. And when I was in rehab, I started to have another incident. My cardiac enzymes became elevated. And I started feeling horrible. I mean, just really, really, really bad. And I told them about it, and they said, "Well, go to your room." And so I went in my room and I drew a picture of it. I'm sitting there by myself, and I knew there was a light over me, and I knew that was the angel of death, the angel of lights, the tunnel was there to pick me up should I be ready to go. Mm-hmm. And so the nurse came in about midnight. She said, "I need to wake you up, but you've got to know this. Your troponin levels are normal. You're going to be okay." And so I said, "Oh, wow. Okay." And so I said to that being, I said, "It's time for you to go. I'm going to be okay now. You need to go." So that was about 11 days after my incident. And so it was still clinging to me. And it left. I had another incident with it about 6 months later. I had started to a class, and they had to take me by emergency ambulance, and my O2 sats went down to 80. But why did I bring that up? I just thought about that.
Did you feel that? Did you feel that the angel of death there at that time too?
There was something. There was a connection, because what had happened is when they gave me EMS, they fractured my neck, and they never found it in the hospital.
Mm.
Okay, they didn't. In fact, it wasn't even found until 1 year and 8 months later. My chiropractor asked for a specific x-ray, and in the x-ray that he asked for, it showed up. So that whole incident, I started a class, and the way I was having to keep my head all day or whatever caused that to occur. It could have caused the troponin to go up, but I don't know. But there was definitely something going on.
Yeah. Interesting. So
So
you was it like a neurological thing that happened?
the last thing,
Yeah. Yeah. When your
but
oxygen went down, like, cause
yeah, no, I think my neck, since it had been fractured and had not been taken care of, I'm supposing I had my neck at a wrong. Maybe I wasn't getting enough oxygen.
okay.
Maybe I'm thinking maybe my head was turned,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I have no idea, but since that event, nothing else has happened. So
Wow.
anyway, that's my story.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. You also in your book explain the connection between memories and oxygen. Do you want to touch
yes,
on that briefly before we
yes,
move on?
yes. Thank you for asking me that. That was very specific. And that came from my guide because I was asking a question about memories and about ghosts and those kind of things. And so we when we get off Earth, there is no oxygen. So the further we get from Earth, the further we get from wanting to be here. Okay, so when we're in the atmosphere of Earth, when we're surrounded by this being that we're sitting on, it provides oxygen from the trees and from the algae and from all the sources that we get oxygen. And the reason that it does is because it wants us to have it flow through our system, the bodies that it gives us. And in those bodies, we have a mind and a memory. And that memory, that thinking must have oxygen.
Mhm.
And so we get to near-death experiences and people saying, oh, I died for 20 minutes or I died for an hour or whatever. Well, we know physiology. You're a nurse, I'm a nurse, and basic nursing physiology teaches you that you don't, without oxygen, your brain tissues die. Your tissues in your body begin to die. Okay. And so you can't be dead physically in a physical body without having your tissues die. And so this was an explanation to me. What happened to me is because I went without oxygen. I went out of the Earth's atmosphere without oxygen. And when I went up to the planets without oxygen, okay, I lost my mind is so much better. I still have problems with my memory, but I lost a great deal of my memory initially. I couldn't even add. Okay. I couldn't tell you what 2 + 2 is. There was so much. And I lost the left-hand side of my lower leg and upper leg because rigor mortis was going to set in. And when rigor mortis can set in within an hour in some people, especially with anaphylaxis, there's no oxygen. So rigor mortis is going to set in sooner. Okay. So the explanation of that oxygen is you have no memory. You were taken out of here. You lost a lot of those memories because you lost oxygen. You had tissues die where oxygen fed them, and you had memories stored. And that is why. And that's where that whole equation came from.
Of this equation.
Does that equation sound easy to you? Because I thought, okay, that
It's earth plus oxygen equals memories.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that's how you keep your memories. That's how you keep your body.
Yeah.
That's how ghosts are here. They haven't lost their oxygen. They chose to stay. They're surrounded on an environment of oxygen.
Hmm. And that allows them to keep their earth life memories. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. You
Okay.
can let's say you go, okay, I'm giving you my assumption. Okay, this is my assumption. I'm assuming that for ghosts, that they're here on the atmosphere and they're inside the atmosphere of the earth where there is oxygen. However, they don't have the physical brain tissues that they had when they were alive. So not everything is clear. Not everything is 100% anymore, but there are little factions, little fractals of information that they cling to,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like waking from a dream.
I
You
mean,
know, that you can have
just
fractals of your dreams.
sense.
Yeah.
What is
I was saying like it's
what
like kind of like waking up from your dreams. Like you have fractals of your dreams. You don't have
right?
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and that's why when people astral project or they meditate, I know I meditate here on Earth. I mean, I've got the oxygen to help my mind see things. Bring things like I meditate and I see the Irma. And so my mind is awake because of the oxygen, and I can see those things. If I take myself off and away from Earth, Earth is no longer important to me. I didn't want to come back. I knew I had family and kids, but the further I got, the further they were unimportant. I mean, I hate to say that, but
You had no
the oxygen,
attachment.
Yeah. You had no attachment to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Now, when you
So,
first came back, did you
Mhm.
have all of those memories right away or no?
no, no. In fact, okay, um, when this was about, I guess about 3 or 4 months, they finally gave me the okay to drive. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the heck did they okay me to drive? I mean, it's like, I don't think they know. I can't remember how to drive. I think it was like 3 months, maybe. I
Oh
can't
my
remember.
God.
But I'm in the car and I'm driving. I'm thinking, why in the heck did they say it was okay to drive? I have no idea where I'm at,
Oh
And so
no.
I mean, it would come to me, oh, I remember that. And that looks familiar. And, but it wasn't like it was. Okay. It was like I couldn't remember 2 + 2. That took like almost 2 years to get
Wow.
that kind of memory. And word problems still really bother me, although mathematics is stronger in me now, but how to figure things out is still very weak. But anyway, so I'm driving down the street and you ask, did this come to me all at once? And uh, I was still very, very attached to that world, probably about 1.5 years afterwards. And then I felt it starting to leave. But let me get back to my driving story. I'm going down the road and I'm going to my hospital appointment to visit the doctor. And I'm in the middle of the road and there's traffic. And I not hear him, but it goes in down to my heart, and I know, okay, I've got something I got to tell you. And he starts telling me something, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget this. I need to pull over somewhere and write it down. I don't have any place to pull over. Why are you telling me now? This is not good, because by the time I get to the hospital, I'm gonna forget what you told me. And so and I knew that everything that came through was like, wow, I needed to know that. And so I lost a lot of that information if I didn't have a pen or paper, unfortunately. But I did manage to get that oxygen plus the earth one equals memory. And I wish I'd gotten whatever they had told me. Because that attachment, unfortunately, I mean, it's still there. I get spoken to in my dreams almost nightly,
Mhm.
almost nightly.
And so
And,
when you said the information he was talking to me, or the information was coming through, were you referring to your guide?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you still
Yeah.
are in contact with him?
Yes. Oh,
This
yes.
one, this guide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. If I see a little blink in the house, I'll go, hi, how are you? I see you. You're over there. You know, I see a lot of little flashes of light now, more than I did
God.
then.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are, you know.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
It's so interesting you said that, because I was telling Karen last night, every time I look at the sky now, I see a flash of light and then it
Uh-huh.
disappears. And then a flash of light and then it disappears. And it responds to me when I speak to
Right.
it. Yeah.
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 Funny. They'll start doing that more and more too, when they
Oh,
know
yeah.
you see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. So
It is.
I just loved your story so much, and I knew I had to connect with you because there were so many. First of all, it's so unique to other near-death experiences. Like you said, it wasn't the tunnel and the white light and the love and like all of
Yeah.
that typical NDE kind of stuff. It was so unique. And I felt more, for me, it resonated more with me than any of that kind of stuff, because it felt more real. And you saw or experienced what we call the matrix soul pods. You referred to it as like a petri dish, but the way you drew them here is so interesting. You told me when we spoke that they weren't actually colors; they were more like gray, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, let me tell you that during my when I was sitting on the planet, I'm sitting there with that guy, and that's part of my story. I keep forgetting, is from planet to planet, from here to there. There were formulas, there were algebraic equations going across the sky, mathematics. So it was all hooked up. It was all attached, and also there was an astrological uh, empire
Mm.
of buildings, or not buildings, but something that was seen. And it wasn't for them to tell fortunes, it was a method of recognition. This was here. This was the error of this. This was the error of that. There were errors, and those astrological um, signs, or the universal astrology, they're different than Earth, okay? They're up there, and they represent um, a portion, or where we've been, or as a universe, or where, you know, it's a signal. I can't exactly describe it, but it's
Like
it's
an energy
yeah,
signature.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were asking about the pods.
Yeah, I wanted to go deeper into that because it's very interesting. So you colored them in your book. You
I
used
did.
colors, but you told me they were more like grayish,
Right.
which is so interesting because I told you about my own pod experience,
Yes.
and other like clients that have seen these too, or have experienced these, and that have come through in regressions as far as like pre-birth kind of like areas of pre-birth. So
Right.
what came through in my regression was that the way you drew them here with the color,
Uh-huh.
right? These were our original soul pod matrix soul pods, where we
Mhm.
chose to anchor ourselves into these pods and then project our consciousness down into earth as if it was a game, a school to come for learning lessons and just experiencing and playing with each other and soul growth all of those kinds of things that we're told that Earth is, right? And that
Mhm.
that used to be true
Right.
before it was hijacked at some point. It was hijacked. And I
Yes.
think that's what actually turned the pods like gray, like they're gray now. They're not colored like they used to be. I think this is an actual memory for you with these colors.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
the practitioner that I had my regression with, she actually received more information after my session. And the way she's had someone draw it since, and I'm going to show you because it's very similar
Okay.
to the way, it's a little different, but similar. Like the color is
Mhm.
similar to that blue.
Oh yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
they were like chrysalis pods
Right.
that we use to project our consciousness down into here in the organic matrix system. But then
Mhm.
at some point, they were taken over and the energy is now gray, like you saw it.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because I saw a petri dish,
Mhm.
something that looks like a petri dish.
yeah.
Doesn't it? A bunch of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
And I thought,
actually saw it like a petri dish. And what was it
mhm,
like for you to be in that space? What did that feel like?
okay, people say it was gray, it was black. I saw absolutely no color. There was nothing. It was absolutely nothingness. There was nothing to see, total loneliness.
Like a void
Uh,
space? Like when people describe, no, different?
Nothing. I cried out, I'm over, somebody see me, I'm here. And there was just nothingness. And that's when that being, whether it was AI, which I kind of think it was probably AI coming to, I don't know. I didn't see them, but they
Hmm.
lifted me up. They didn't say anything, and I didn't feel any warmth from them.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I was
that's good.
taken, and here you are, and then you
Uh,
start the whole
or great.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was feeling because when I saw it, and you can tell me if you don't want to talk about this because I know like you feel
No.
a little uncomfortable maybe. But when I saw the pods that I was seeing, they were being monitored by Grays. And it wasn't like they were evil or anything like that. It was just their job. Like they were just
Yeah.
monitoring the pods, making sure everything was running okay. It was just very, like
Mm.
cut and dry, very kind of scientific. Like that was just their jobs. That's what they were there to do.
Right.
But so that's what I saw. And then what came through later, was that was the hijacking, like the alien presence was the hijacking
Right.
itself. So yeah, so it's interesting that you say that there was no feeling from them because that's what they're known for. Like there's no feeling,
no heart
there's no
connection.
heart
Right.
connection. It's just,
Right.
And to be in a petri dish
Flat.
sounds very scientific
Flat.
in a sense of like their experiment.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
Yes.
and you told me on the phone that you felt like you were there for a pretty long time before they came to get you, right?
I I did tell you that I was there, and I know I had to cry out, call out, and it seemed like forever.
It seemed like
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm alone, and I'm a person that's alone a lot, so and I like being alone. So it was like extensive. It must have been because hey, I'm over here.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that
Mhm.
whole experience that you had, I know you said there's no time on that side, but if you were
Yeah.
to kind of like parallel our reality versus what you did over there, how long was that time and space in our time here?
Right.
How many days was
Okay.
that? Or
In the Petri
hours?
dish. Okay. How
Or the whole
long?
experience till you woke up, I mean.
The entire
Yeah,
the
the entire experience.
time now
Yeah,
till
like if,
then.
yeah. Like how long
Okay.
did it take here? Like were you in, like when you were considered dead till when you woke up? Like was that the whole period that it took up? Like
I
when you
don't.
woke up, you were fully in body, like when you came back to,
I was fully embodied, but my mind
was still gone.
injured. It was injured. So I don't remember coming back to an injured mind. That
Okay.
didn't really hit me until a few days later, but I knew when I was gone, maybe this will answer. I can't tell you about the Petri dish. It seemed like a long time. I mean, I could tell you it seemed like 100 years, but I don't know.
How much that was in real time? Like, I mean, human time here?
Yeah.
It seems like I grew, like maybe I was a seedling and I grew up. And at that point, I was able to say, hey, I'm over here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was something and I grew. And then suddenly I realized I'm here. Somebody come get me. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The, t- the time from when I was placed into the desert to the end, gosh, that seemed like a lifetime and a half. That was a long time. Long, long,
Yeah.
long, long.
The desert was another connection between us
Yeah.
because what in my regression, also saw a desert. I landed in the desert, which is actually where I saw the pod. So it's like for me, those two scenes, like your petri dish and the desert scene, kind of merged together for me, and I
Mhm.
saw them both in the same like place.
Somebody else just was talking about a desert experience that I just saw, and I'll have to go back and see who that was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, somebody recently. So,
And not only desert, but it was Egyptian feeling. Like I saw the pyramids too. So it was like a merge of all of those things all in one. So
well, I told you, I sent you a message that the Irma, I've been all about the Irma lately, and I told you a little bit about it. I mean, everything is Irma, the Irma. I've been drawing myself as an Irma mask on and everything, but so the Irma, they say, was here 6,000 years, 11,500 years, 50,000 years, 500 million years. Nobody knows. Okay. So what happened is that the Sphinx was the Irma. Okay. And so the Sphinx is older than the pyramids. And they believe, I just read that they believe the Sphinx, they showed their writing, how they scribbled. And the way they scribbled with their claws looks exactly like the hieroglyphs on the pyramids
oh,
and the Sumerian tablets. So it looks like the Urma, Urmah, had something to do with the writing of the hieroglyphics.
interesting. Do you want to
Yeah.
explain to people who the Irma are? Like it's from what you know.
Okay. From what I do not know very much. I have been investigating this for the past 2 weeks, so I really don't know too much. But they resemble cats. They walk on 2 feet. They are alien. They came from Orion's belt, which oddly I was taken to Orion's belt. They come from that vicinity of the universe. They brought with them, when they came, cats because they're amused by them. So that's why we have cats on the earth right now.
Mm.
And the Irma do not eat meats. They eat synthetic meats. They're not carnivorous anymore. They stopped doing that. They are kind of warriors. They do not like the reptilians. They don't They're defenders, and they, well, that's really basically about all I can remember right now. But they're fascinating, and I don't think they've been given enough attention.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
they came really into my knowledge because I told you they came into my space in 2009. I was writing another novel, and they started appearing to me then. And I believe it was them that gave me part of the novel.
Hmm.
But they came recently as I was taking an alchemy class, and I was doing exercises outside, doing alchemical exercises with a pyramid, facing it towards the sun, and then doing a torus design with the hands. And I do this in a meditative state, and I do it very, very slowly using qigong. Okay. And so as I begin to do this, I begin to see the energy in my hand start to move. Okay. I'd start moving my hands, and I would literally see the energy flow in my hands. So as I'm doing this, and I put my pyramid up towards the sun like that, suddenly I step back because that animal family that visited me in 2009 is suddenly in my dimension where I can see it again. Okay. And so when I look at them, there's like lions with beautiful, okay, the Irma wear beautiful robes. They're into gold. Okay. I paint with a lot of gold. They're into reds. Um, they, anyway, so they wear these fantastic headdresses and just beautiful, beautiful things. And so uh, one appeared to me, and then two, and then three, and they just seemed to be looking. Well, I told you that I took a picture of them right after my NDE in a tree, where a friend of mine in the UK reversed the image in the tree. And I'll be doggone if a cat isn't showing. His head is above my roof and goes down to the ground. And he looks kind of angry. So I step back, like, what is that? What is that doing over my head? But, cats can have that, that lion fearsome look. So I have come to realize in the past couple of weeks, that's not a look of we're out to get you. That's just the way they look. It's just don't get freaked out by the image that you might see.
So you feel that they're mostly benevolent?
Yes, I do. Someplace said that they were part of the reptilian family, but I don't believe so. All the other places, and there's not a lot written about them. All the other
No.
places, no. All the other places say they are not part of the reptilians. And if you watch a cat will go after a lizard in a second.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So that's how, yeah, they're not part of that.
Mhm. It's interesting that you're connecting with them now, because thinking back on my life, like as a child, I was obsessed with lions. Like I had lion pictures all over my room and just was like so obsessed with like big cats. I've actually had a visit from one of those lion-like beings before. I don't know if it was an Irma or what it actually was. It was just one time, but it was kind of like you described, like they had a really kind of like a royal type presence,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Very
Very
protector, very fierce, very,
They do.
yeah. So,
When they love you, they love you.
right. Yeah. It's like that fierce kind of love. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what it felt like. Yeah. Very interesting. Wow. I have so many questions, Bonnie. I don't even know where to start.
Well,
How are you feeling though? Are you okay? You getting tired?
I am getting a little tired, but I will be more than happy to do this with you again.
Okay.
if you want to do that.
We could do a Q&A part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
'cause
do
That'll be
that.
fun.
to study up and go on too. That would be
Yeah, because
awesome.
we could present this and we can have our audience, if they have questions, to
Yeah.
bring in
Yeah.
some questions.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, then. I guess
Okay.
we can wrap it up then and we'll have you back on.
Yay.
Thank you so much. It's so much fun.
Thank you so much for being here, Bonnie. Just stick around for a minute. I'm just gonna stop the video and thank everyone for watching and being here. If you have any questions for Bonnie, please leave them in the comments and we'll be sure to ask them in our next video.
And where can we find the book?
Yes.
So we can.
Yes. I'm going to try to put that on sale if I can manage to do it on Amazon.
Okay.
Great.
Is there an email or something that if people want to contact you, or are you open to that?
Yes, sure. It's Bonnie G. Jennings with an S at gmail.com.
Perfect.
Perfect. And do you have a website?
I do, but I just closed it down.
You
Oh.
did. Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't for this, but I'm on Facebook. I'm Bo Jen Jennings. Bo Jen is my author name. So
Okay.
Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Bonnie. Stick around for a minute. Thanks everyone for watching. Leave your questions and comments down below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being
thank
here.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.